While I love Stephen Curry and he's probably the greatest shooter of all time, he is not the MVP of the NBA.
Tearing up his knee in last year's bubble. Misses that one. Curry gets inside and a layup for his first. Poole has been the backup point guard, playing with Curry obviously now. Curry, count it, and the foul.
Drive.
Morant picked up by Curry. Again, Curry with 5 fouls. Shot clock at 3. Morant gets inside. A little push shot is good. 33 for John Morant. Looking to help out on ball denial. Anderson looking. Finds Bane. Bane inside. He throws it down. And that will do it. And that will do it. The Memphis Grizzlies are in the playoffs. They eliminate the Golden State Warriors.
Before I dissect this topic, let me just get this out of the way. Stephen Curry is easily one of my favorite players ever, and I have a lot of nostalgia and miss the days where I walk into the middle school lunchroom and see everybody else sporting Stephen Curry jerseys. This here is the Crafty Academy, and here I break down the ins and outs of true basketball and how, yes, Crafty plays into it. This will be a true basketball discussion on Stephen Curry and what he brings to the teams he plays on, as well as the ceilings that they have. There is no politics and no BS in the words that I use, and I won't be mentioning any other than Steph's playstyle in terms of his MVP case. I think it's safe to say that after the really slow start Steph had coming out of Davidson, nobody expected him to become an all-time great and have the 3 rings that he has attained today. It was interesting this year to see how he matched up against other all-time greats in the past and their playoff runs compared to his, well, lack of a playoff run. The Warriors falling short of the playoffs this year is enough on its own to prove that Steph is not the most valuable player in the NBA, but there are a lot of basketball reasons for this and why he has such a low ceiling, and we will take a look at the teams that he played on in the past to dissect this. Let's think back to 2016 on the 73-9 Warriors team. They were able to dominate in the regular season, yet couldn't see it through in the playoffs, and here's why. In the regular season, when you are in the everyday grind of having a game every other day, the Warriors were able to run teams out of the gym with their fast-paced offense and drive and kick motion. It was simple. Try to get as many threes in transition as possible, and if that doesn't work, set a high ball screen for Steph. He can kick it out to Clay. If neither of them is open, somebody else is bound to be open in the corner. I have to give credit. The Warriors with this play style changed the NBA forever. The Rockets took that style and adopted it and even adapted it the next year, and now the entire league does it. But unfortunately, while a lot of people figured out how the Warriors offense worked, other coaches figured out how to stop it. In the playoffs, it becomes much easier to lock them down and force them to play a much more contained style of basketball. The Cavaliers didn't just get lucky when they came back from a 3-1 deficit. On top of fantastic play from LeBron James and Kyrie Irving, Ty Lue figured out the formula of how to limit Clay and Steph, and that's to use long physical defenders to wear and tear their bodies throughout the games and to make it harder for them to get an open space like it is in the regular year. You know, late in that playoff series, when the legs get a little bit more tired, there's not as much bounce in your step. The long physical defenders really get in Steph's head, and it's harder for him to get in that open space that he finds so easily during the regular season. Then, when he can't get that open space, he has to kick it out to a teammate who can't do anything himself, or just go back out for a reset and rely on a 28-foot step back. As soon as they get to that point, the Warriors have to rely on Steph's shot-making ability to take them past the other team. They have no chance. So the Cavs overcame them through this strategy and, of course, some brilliant shot making by Kyrie Irving, and Steph was left in the dust because he was not able to physically match up with the Cavaliers. But then the Warriors pulled an extreme chess move which created probably the greatest team in NBA history, as Kevin Durant the following year joined the team. Kevin Durant is what you call a perfect basketball player. He is pure. When most people think of an all-around player, they think points, rebounds, and assists, but that's not the case. To me, and what KD represents, is an all-around game where he can take his man off a dribble handoff, where he can get open off the ball, where he can come off a ball screen and score. There is no spot on the floor where Kevin Durant cannot hurt you, and that is the definition of a true all-around player, which is what the Warriors lacked. Stephen Curry absolutely maximizes his productivity and takeover powers with the build and genetics he has, but he does have weaknesses. Putting Kevin Durant on the Warriors gave them a safety net and a pretty much guaranteed basket regardless of who's guarding him in any situation. The Warriors were able to easily dominate the Cavs because Durant limited LeBron on defense and was able to get whatever he wanted on offense, which in turn took all the weak side help and pesky face guarding off of Steph and Clay, which led to them running the Cavs out of the gym like you would see during the regular season. And this illustrates exactly why Kevin Durant alone is more valuable than Stephen Curry. Think about the following years in 2019 when he tore his Achilles against the Raptors. With Kevin Durant off the floor, the next big guard is Kawhi Leonard, who is a really consistent scorer that is able to get to his spots with his physicality and control. Kawhi Leonard is not an explosive scorer like Steph is, but he is much more consistent. He's able to get to his spots better. He also physically matches anybody the Warriors had to throw at him. So with KD out, the Raptors were able to really wear down Stephen Curry with loose double teams, pesky defenders, and some pressure one-on-one defense that kept him from getting the looks he wanted. So then we go back to square one where this problem lies. As Steph gets more pressure in his face, he has no one to rely on. He goes back to this shot-making ability that he needs to use in order to keep them in the game, which is not a consistent way of winning. Okay, here's what's tough about the Warriors. It's a rock-hard fact that basketball is a rhythm sport. So during the regular season, when the defense isn't as tight, it's a lot easier to get those open looks. Steph is getting whatever shot he wants, and his teammates are watching him like, wow, this is the guy. We need to give him the ball. He's the one who's going to take us home every night. Once the defenses bear down and the double teams come, Steph doesn't have the athleticism to break this pressure so easily, which forces him to kick it to a teammate. But they don't have the confidence because they're not in rhythm to get those open shots themselves. Without his teammates willing or honestly being able to step into a larger role, all the opposing team has to do is get in Steph's head and make it difficult for him to get an easy shot, and they've pretty much won the game. And that's the difference between Stephen Curry and a bigger, stronger player like Kevin Durant, because even if he's getting doubled, he can just pass it off and then get the ball somewhere else. Steph needs to handle to get to his spots. Steph needs to run the ball in a pick and roll scenario. The catch and shoot shots we often see Steph getting are often a set in stone play or a give and go back out to the 3-point line. It's never from a teammate just in the rhythm of the offense. So we get to this year, and it's the first time since Steph became one of the best players that we've seen him play without other All-Stars. And he had one of his best individual years. But I think it's exploring whether he's in the MVP running because he's Steph Curry or because he really was that dominant. If you look at guys like Harden a couple years ago, or Lillard, or even Iverson when he was still playing, they were barely even in the MVP running, and they arguably had better seasons while winning more games. And what's interesting about this is that guys like Luka Doncic or Lillard, who are in similar situations to Steph this year, also struggle in the playoffs, also because they don't have that physical dominance that Steph also lacks. We see exactly the heart of this problem in the playback game between the Warriors and the Grizzlies that the Grizzlies won. Steph starts off the game hot, getting a couple nice looks, and as the game wears down, the Grizzlies adjust and send double teams, big defenders, and pressure defense, and Steph isn't able to break down the pressure or get to the free throw line. But since he can't rely on his teammates, Steph has to go to the falling away catch and shoot threes and crafty layups that rarely go in. Not to mention, the Grizzlies then take advantage of his height and weight deficit and pick on him defensively. If it were somebody else in Steph's shoes, like, say, Kevin Durant, he's bigger, he's more physical, so he could pass out of the double team or break it and get to a different spot on the floor because he can cook from anywhere. He can create a shot from anywhere. And there's a lot of guards in the NBA that have this similar problem to Steph, and while it's not necessarily their fault, it does exist, and it should take them out of this whole best player conversation, yet for Steph, it doesn't seem to give him that repercussion. We've seen a lot of other great guards in the NBA do this, and they haven't seen any MVP recognition, while Steph is for having an unsuccessful season with pretty good individual play. I want to reiterate one more time that Stephen Curry is one of my favorite players. He's, in my opinion, one of the craftiest guards of all time and one of the best scorers. And I think that he really competes and makes the most out of every situation he's in. However, every point I made stands, and I don't think he is one of the most valuable players in the NBA, and he is not my pick for MVP this year. That said, let me know what you think about Steph and his MVP case this season. I'd love to see you compare him to Jokic and Embiid. This has been the Crafty Academy. I'm going to keep making videos breaking down the ins and outs of basketball, where I will give real basketball discussion, which will not be based on politics or any real media narratives. This is simply what I see when I watch the game. Thanks so much for joining me. I sincerely hope you'll join me next time. Peace, love, and faith.